Okay, Mark, thank you so much for doing this. Um, let's start. Tell us, please, where you were born, and where you live right now, and maybe some story that connects those two places, even if they are the same.
Okay, well, good morning, Mauro. I am actually on this call from Taipei, Taiwan. I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and I still live in Taipei, Taiwan. But I took a huge detour. I went to United States in 1978. That was, gosh, how many years ago? Anyway, I was in the United States from 1978 until 1993. I pursued my education in the United States, and then I returned to Asia in 1993. But I did not come back to Taiwan until 1997. So yes, I was born here in Taipei, Taiwan. Taipei is the capital city of Taiwan. And I took a detour, a sojourn, if you will, around the world. Went to the United States, worked in Hong Kong, studied in Japan, spent some time in Germany, and then voila, I'm back in Taiwan. And since '97, I have been here, and I have, married, raised my family, developed my career, and I'm very happy here. Very happy. Right.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
Mark, so having uh, um, lived in and passed by all these many and different places, what is your perspective of the world today? Do you think it's getting better or it's getting worse?
Well, sometimes is the world getting better or worse? Is like asking, are you happy or not? You are not always happy, right? Uh, so you're not. But I think you look at the overall picture of whether you're happy or not, and the overall trend, I think, is the world getting better or not. Uh, I think the world's becoming more aware. I think the world is becoming more considerate, but the world is becoming more diverse and chaotic. We have a lot more conveniences. Information is freely available, but a lot of the information, a lot of these progresses are noises. We don't. I don't think the world is is distilling all the new technology, all the new conveniences, and then cutting through all these noises and finding the right path. Uh, so I think the world is getting better, but I think conditionally the world needs to do a lot of work to realize that betterment.
When you say that the world is not distilling and everything to find the, let's say, the right path, do you think this it's like a flaw, or it just takes time, or it is function the of more noise, so it's harder to distill through all this noise?
Well, I mentioned, the people are becoming more considerate, more, um, what's the word? More embracing. We embrace differences. We respect diversity. But by embracing all these in an effort to embrace everyone, you you actually gain a lot of information or issues that may not be relevant to what's in front of you. Take the example of carbon emission. Oh my God! I mean, it's it's so complicated, right? Politically, economically. I met this guy the other day, an economist, and I think he's very good. He says, "Look, you know, we have these huge summits where we said we're going to reduce our emission, right? And everybody makes a big effort and say we're going to do it. And the next day, all these same people go and sign free trade agreements to increase economic activity, to increase trade, to increase spending. So how are you supposed to ask for zero emission when you're increasing your economic activity, when you are increasing your encouraging spending, consumer spending? It's sort of ironic, right? So at the end of the day, uh, are people seeing this, or are they just seeing, oh, we are everybody is aware of global warming, but no one is willing to sacrifice, right? No one's willing to sacrifice their consumer convenience. No government want to lose on their GDP growth. Nobody want to be the bad guy or do the bad thing. So how are you supposed to reach that lofty goal?
Yes, that's so. I think carbon is a very complicated topic,
Yes.
and but the thing that touched me about what you said is how the same people say one thing in one place and a different. They say something. They may even sign an intention, and then they go and do a completely different thing. So I read just the other day that the number of um, um, of deals that were signed for natural gas developments for the next like 30 years is bigger than it was like in the last 10 years. So the industry is actually committing with more natural gas, not less. So like I'm not discussing if this is good or bad. My personal opinion is that it's not necessarily bad, okay? Because
Right.
what I think is the most important thing that we have to do, even for the environment, is to reduce poverty, okay, to
Mhm.
reduce inequality. And cheap, reliable energy is very important for that. And natural gas is an important part of this. But this is not even the point, even though I just made
Right.
a statement, right? It's more about how the same people go and sign this and then go and sign that. And
Right.
this has been
Yeah, it's
such a
ironic.
trend, right? Such
Okay,
a trend
let me,
of,
okay. For example, okay, Apple, right? iPhones. Every year, iPhone comes up with a new one, right?
yeah,
What's the point?
yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I can still use iPhone 10 or iPhone 9 or maybe even iPhone 8, right? So what's the point? I've got all these old iPhones sitting here, and for
But I
Christmas,
think it's even more than that. It's about they could have made iPhone 13 5 years ago, right? So
hmm
like this brings your what the way I see this, Mark, and I have been discussing this in other episodes. Those are predatory business models,
hmm
okay, in which you make your client a hostage and
right,
you have to extract all possible financial benefit from a technology, but in a predatory way, that predates not just on the customer but on the environment also.
Mhm.
And I people are worried about, like doing using more wind than coal or solar than natural gas, but we should it would be much easier to attack in the sense of try to fix these business models.
Yeah, okay. Let's use Taiwan as an example. We're an island, right? We don't have natural resources, so we need to import um, coal for our fire power plant. We have to import natural gas for our power plant. So we start making investments into these wind farms, right? Including offshore wind farms. The problem with Taiwan is that our peak electricity use is in the summer when it's very hot and everybody turns on their air conditioning. But then when do we get our wind? We get our wind actually in the winter. That's when the winds come in. So during summer, wind power, they don't really generate much. They generate most of their power during winter when we don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, so okay, but renewable energy is part of the government's initiative. So the government will always show the number that renewable energy is now, let's say, 7% or 8%. But then, when you look at it during summer, we are still short of power because there's no wind. So you must say, well, then we need to find a way to store energy, right? Store this renewable energy. Yes, yes, that's a big topic, but it's all technology in progress, under development. And
Yes.
unless that can be realized, the renewable energy will continue to be unreliable.
And so what do you we just talked maybe about a few of these challenges ahead, but what do you think are the big challenges ahead for us to, keep making the world a better place?
Uh, you know, I think the world's changing so fast. I think my generation, my parents' generation, um, there were changes, but not at this pace. I think since 1990s, the pace of change is so dramatic in every aspect, in entertainment, in education, and everything. And so what we are, to use a more academic, I think we are looking for a new paradigm. The challenge is we are looking for a new it has to be a new paradigm of way of doing things. Democracy is good, but now with internet, um, with polarization of opinion, with diversity, you are supposed to embrace diversity, but in fact, people are polarizing it, right? If you look at the media, uh, Fox, for example, the more conservative media is doing very well because everybody goes there. And then, do they get the diverse view? No, they don't. Okay, you go on the more liberal side. Uh, do you get diverse view? No, they give you what you want to hear. So people have a lot of choices, but people tend not to choose the choice that's the most balanced. They choose something that fit what they want, and that further enhances the polarization. So I would say, um, we need a new paradigm to manage to rebalance the current polarization of opinions and views, and then bring everybody back to a consensus again. Not easy.
It's not easy, but this is interesting. What you just said, it reminded me of a book from the 70s, but it's a very important book for scientists that's called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And
Mhm.
what he shows is that, it's the shift, the paradigm shift is very difficult, and it takes a lot of time. It happens abruptly,
Mhm.
but it takes a lot of time, right? Because you need to. It's very difficult to recognize. We are probably already living the new paradigm, but we
Right.
cannot recognize it. So
Right.
until you need, it's very difficult for a generation that lived the old paradigm to shift for the new one. So you need a new generation that is raised already living the new paradigm to make the shift. And he was telling this about scientific paradigms, right? And I don't know, when you change from uh, um, um, the visions from Newton and Einstein, for example, and then from Einstein uh, to quantum mechanics, all these big people start to refute the evidences of a new paradigm because it's uncomfortable. And then you need people that just saw the evidence of the new paradigm to go and implement, or let's say to be able to install this new paradigm, this new way of doing things. So maybe it will take a couple more decades for us to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think I think it seems like before, I think everybody feels that these days we're going back to a Cold War structure, right? Geopolitically, okay. You're seeing, you know, the axis, sort of the axis powers, the China and the Russia, the grouping together, the dictators, okay, the North Korea, for example, and then you have United States being on the forefront of this summit of democratic countries. Well, is Brazil going, or is Brazil invited?
I don't know. As you know, I have two baby twins, and I'm
Okay.
not really up to date to all the news, but I don't know if Brazil is going.
Yeah, well, President Biden is holding this summit of like-minded democracies.
But I'm not sure Brazil is that like-minded democracy these days, Mark. We are not yeah. A lot of people would argue uh, that we are not in that democratic state anymore.
Right. But some of the countries invited, including I think Nigeria, isn't exactly that democratic either.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
I do.
So I don't know. I think the benchmark or the criteria for attendance uh, is
It's very low.
is customized. Is customized.
Well,
Uh,
it. So these may represent the best view of. So the way I see the world today is crony democracy.
mm,
Okay, so it's I even heard a better word the other day, which is a shitocracy. So we are being ruled by the worst of the worst, and that applies in many places. So um, it's and it's all about how to benefit your friends, right?
hmm hmm
And but you can change the definition of friends according to who can bring more benefits to you in a given moment. So it's this elite, it's a a very vicious cycles of elites supporting governments that support elites that support governments. and and yes, it's funny, right, that we're just talking about optimism, and but it is like a challenge ahead, in my opinion, how this is, uh, how we are going to make democracy better, because it seems like we cannot, we have evolved much more in technology than in political, or in political systems. Or let me try to fix this. We haven't applied all the advanced technology tools that we developed in to make government and governing and democracy better.
Yes, I know governments. Actually, Mauro, I actually took courses at Taiwan's Civil Service Academy 2 years ago, and the academy trains civil servants, high-ranking ones. And I realized the government, at least here in Taiwan, harnesses technology to do many things, but all in experimental stage. Because I think civil service in every country tend to be very conservative, and very suspicious of technology that would create a new sort of protocol. But I do see digitalization. I do see the data. I do see public opinion being trickled down to policies. Okay, and that for me is very exciting. But the impact right now is still minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah, still minimal. I mean, yeah, but I think if if you have a good, decent government who actually does care about the country, eh, I think that the civil service structure must harness technology to improve um, the governance of a country. Yeah.
Okay, there are there are three things that you said that I want to come back to, and one is the last, like, if the government is good, and I want to. Uh, um, this is something that bothers me,
Hmm.
because um, I would, I don't like to count on things like this. So my question is, like, is there a way? Do you think there's a way that we don't have to count on the government being good, or can we incentivize the government to do right? Because sometimes, somehow, I think that the governments are incentivized not to do right, but to do whatever is better for them, for the government, not really uh,
Right.
um,
Right.
for the people. So to have to count that the government is going to do right, it's something that bothers me. And, and the other two things have to do with the new Cold War and technology. But I don't know if you want to add something about this incentivizing the government to do good instead of counting on it.
Yeah. Well, I think if you are a democracy, there's the voting system, right? And I mean, I can see. Let's say I look at Taiwan and Hong Kong, for example. Okay, Taiwan is a democracy. We elect our representatives and so forth. So about 7, 8 years ago, property prices went through the roof. Okay, and it was very speculative. So the government implemented special tariff and schemes to control real estate prices, and was successful. I think partly, not completely successful, but it did slow down the rise of housing prices. Okay, and they had to do that because if they didn't do that, they won't get reelected. We talk about incentive. On the other hand, at the same time, you look at Hong Kong. Hong Kong's property prices is going through the roof as well. But Hong Kong people do not elect their own officials. So they absolutely have no leverage over their official on such issues that affect their livelihood. And that's why, I mean, I look at Hong Kong. I mean, the housing prices are crazy. But why no one does anything about it? Because the conglomerates are in cahoots with the government, and the government is not elected. And the conglomerates incentivize the government to keep the price high. So everybody make money except and affect your, citizens of Hong Kong. And
Yes.
I see that. I mean, Taiwan, no, the price is still high, but during that period, the government implemented several policies that pushed the price down. And it's because of the election.
Yes, but also like what we are just seeing in Brazil right now is uh, when the government enters, like they cut welfare, and then when they are about to leave or when
Right.
re-election is coming, they re-implement welfare. So this, uh, I think, the 4 year cycle it's outdated,
Mm,
and we could have better tools uh, uh, to incentivize the government and also to make it accountable,
mm,
like in a more frequent and smoother way than the election every
mm,
4 years. But Mark, let me ask you about the other two things. That you mentioned that we are going to a new Cold War with again superpowers and the rise of China in the last decades and Russia coming back in its own way, and like even the not superpowers having an important role in this new Cold War, like North Korea. So and somehow this is all connected with technology, right?
mhm,
Because technology allows hackers in a non superpower like North Korea can actually um, create world disorder because of the power of technology. And you are in Taiwan, living in born in Taipei, and Taiwan is from everything that I hear a key piece in this geopolitical chessboard. And also because not only because of the um, perspective of a Chinese invasion and what the other superpowers are going to do about it, but also because of the role that Taiwan has in this technology world, because the silicon chip suppliers are the main silicon chip supplier of the world is in Taiwan. So how do you, being a Taiwanese, is this something that you perceive in your daily life? Is this a concern of the Taiwanese for the future? Does that impact your view of if the world is getting better or not?
Well, you know, yes, indeed, Taiwan now is sort of, I think before people didn't know really Taiwan's position. sometimes we get confused with, for example, Thailand. But in the past few years, everybody,
Many people think that Buenos Aires is the capital of Brazil, so I know what you're I know what you're feeling. I know you're feeling.
yeah. So, but now I think people are fairly clear. For one thing, we did a pretty good job controlling COVID. And on the other, because of the semiconductor industry here in Taiwan. Uh, but this is not something that just happened overnight. Taiwan has been an electronics powerhouse for the last 25 years. Yes, right now, the focus is on semiconductor chips. But if you look at the notebooks that's being made, iPad, um, capacitors, servers, printed circuit boards, disks, memories, um, everything that make that the infrastructure and the gateways of the electronics world, so much of it is made or developed here in Taiwan. I think the pandemic uh, basically highlighted the how crucial the semiconductor industry is to the world. But I think there are many other parts of Taiwan that's crucial to the technology sphere. So I like to see this. I mean, if you look at it geopolitically, Taiwan in a way is like the Kuwait in terms of oil. Kuwait had a lot of oil, right? And so when Iraq invaded Kuwait, United States came right in, right? Taiwan right now, in terms of computer chips, we are like the Kuwait. We are 50% of the global supply. One company, Taiwan Semiconductor, is about 50% of the global supply. And we still have other semiconductor companies such as UNC, and combined, I think we are maybe close to 60% of global supply. I think even Kuwait, with all its oil, did not have 60% of the global supply of oil, right? But here, these chips are like oil for the technology industry, and we are 60%.
How did this
Therefore,
happen, Mark? Like, please educate me in my ignorance. Was this an invention of someone? Or do you know
oh
how
yes, yes.
how this came to be?
This actually this
How
is
Taiwan
something
got
that,
to this
right.
60%?
Well, this was planned years ago. In the 1970s, Taiwan was the economy was booming. It was export oriented, but it was making toys, making plastic flowers, making labor intensive low technology products. But I must say, back then, that's why I said good government. Taiwan had a group of officials, well, technocrats. We call them technocrats. These technocrats, every morning, they only have one thing in mind: how to make this country better and stronger. And they had a vision. They said, the story is that these few wise men, every morning they go and have breakfast and they talk and they explore and they think. And they say, you know what? We have a lot of Taiwanese studying in the United States. We should invite them back. We should talk to them. We should discuss with them what to do, how to plan for the country's future. So in the 1970s, they already start thinking about the next thing. And in the 1980s, one of one of these great men, Mr. Lee, KT Lee, he went over to United States, to Texas Instruments, and convinced Dr. Morris Chang, to come back. And he says, look, you just developed this industry. You want money, I give you money. You want land, I give you land. And in the 80s, this industry then started. And then they even set up, for the first time in history, there is a concept of a scientific park. Taiwan set up this huge scientific park with all the proper infrastructure to nurture high-tech industry. And then we also have this Taiwan also in the 70s created this institute called ITRI. It's maybe a little bit like Max Planck in Germany. ITRI has 6,000 researchers, and these researchers, they were spun off into these companies. They provide the brain power, the workhorse to make these companies, to establish these companies and make it successful. And so this just didn't happen overnight. And over in I think in the mid to late 80s, the industry started, and then in the 90s, and by in the 2000, these companies
Mm,
already have they already. But then again, you need to look at vision. TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, is a company with extraordinary vision. They were willing to put in billions of dollars in research to create the next generation of chips. And but then I think the fact that TSMC is able to do that, and people from TSMC, the diaspora, the workers, the employees of TSMC also fan out, create their own companies, IC design companies, right? And the thing is, then Taiwan becomes a cluster. The people who makes the semiconductor and the people who design the semiconductor becomes two different groups. And the people who design the semiconductor, they don't need much capital. But then once they design something, they can almost walk next door to
yeah.
TSMC and say, hey, can you make this chip for me? TSMC look at it and say, wow, interesting chip. Let's try. You know, 2 weeks down the road, another company with their design says, hey, TSMC, I got another chip. Can you make it for me? And so TSMC, became very flexible, became very, very agile. And the IC design houses in Taiwan also became, because because the cluster. And I think that's where you see the problem with Intel now. Intel only makes chips for itself. It's not versatile. And TSMC, through versatile manufacturing, they learned. They learned a lot. They learned more than Intel learned in its own vacuum. And so TSMC realized where the market is going and went forward. And all the IC design houses, the IC design companies, they followed because they were confident that if they design something, someone's going to make it for them. You see, so this thing, I mean, it all goes back to good government, to those few technocrats who have breakfast every morning before work, 7:30. Actually, it's not far from where I live. The shop is no longer there, but that's the legend. They would actually have their breakfast and then walk to work together.
But look, I'm so happy that we recorded this, because the story that you told it's beautiful. And no, and these guys, even though you're talking about them with all this reverence, in
Mm,
the end, their decision was very simple, Mark. Right? It was
mhm.
bring the brains back,
Yes,
right? and
yes,
and, and it's not like, oh wow, let's put all these people together, and maybe that's even what they realize, right? So like, we are gathering these brains here every morning to to decide what to do, and said, maybe we should have more brains thinking about this. There are so many brains abroad, let's bring the brains back. And what we are experiencing in Brazil right now, with the dismantlement of the research and development infrastructure is brain drain, right? And we should be doing the opposite. Should like, how do we stop our brains from living? And like, this is true for every economy that you can like spot in the map. uh, if the country is not doing well, their scientists have left, or if the country is not recovering, it's because the scientists are and engineers and the brains are not there anymore. Without those, all you can do is produce low tech, low aggregate value products that cannot take you and cannot make an economy take off.
Right. Well, Taiwan did this, and these another country that's doing this or has been doing this is China. You see,
Yes.
even though, yes, right now, Taiwan and China, we are all like upset with each other. Actually, the governments are, the people are not so antagonistic. I mean, come on, my ancestors came from China. Okay, most of us have ancestors that came from China, right? And you'd be interested to know many things that Taiwan does now, China does. Taiwan was a wonderful experiment for China. When China opened up, they sent so many people to Taiwan to learn, and they say, "My God, this is the way to do it." And so I think, I mean, right now, yes, China politically, China has this thing, right? But I always have this thought. I think that book that years ago people read, From A to A Plus, right?
No, I
That
don't
was
know this book.
no, it was like the thing. It was a management thing. It's like how
Hmm.
to go from A to A plus. Okay, and I think interestingly, I think China as an economy is an A. And if you look at the way it's developing everything, let's not talk about politics, not talk about human rights. That's a different issue. Just look at the pure economic power and strength. China is A. But in order for China to become A plus, I think Taiwan is the linchpin.
I
Funny,
see.
huh? But in order for China to realize Taiwan's value and become plus, I don't think they should be together. They need to be arms apart. They
Yes.
should be arms apart because Taiwan is a completely different system, but it's a system that China has learned and can still learn from.
Look, Mark, this is so interesting. We could go on and on, but
Yeah,
like, time is passing, time is flying. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, three rapid fire questions. The
sure.
first is, which book you are reading right now?
I think I mentioned it to you. Sapien.
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 Okay.
Finally, I read Sapien. Fabulous.
Yes, it's fabulous.
I
It's
open it.
so
I'm getting
like,
ready to read his next one. I think that like what for the
yeah,
21st
Homo.
century.
There's
He's
Homo Gods, and there's like 21 lessons for the 21st century.
right. The 21 lessons for 21st century. That's the
Yeah.
one I'm about to start.
Yes, but like, I became a big fan. I also read all of them, but Sapiens is uh, the best one in my opinion, because what I think is his biggest achievement in Sapiens is not to take sides. So he managed to talk about all these things just a little bit in the end when he talks about animal cruelty and a little bit about homosexualism. I think that he takes sides, but
Mhm.
uh, um, most of the book he is able to talk, about corporations, about countries, without taking sides, just laying down the facts for you to build your own opinion. And I think this is a very important talent.
Yeah,
Maybe this is the reason why this book it touched so much people.
it challenges your traditional beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second question is: do you take long or short lunch breaks?
Very short.
Very short.
I almost eat on the run.
Yeah, well, that's what most people I ask. That's the answer of most people I ask. And as it was interesting, started asking this question, like the first one, where you were born and where you live, as a way of uh, um, letting the facts talk about who these people that I'm talking to are, instead of asking them, like, tell me something about you. But it's very impressive how this behavior of eating fast, I think this can have a lot of other consequences. So I will keep thinking.
Okay.
There's something to be explored there.
Hmm.
The third question, it's very interesting. So Bitcoin, are you a believer or a non-believer?
Oh, that's a tough question. Believer in what?
Okay, so
As a medium
let
of
me ask in a
exchange?
different way. Do you have any Bitcoin
No,
and no other cryptocurrency?
none.
Okay,
Although I
well,
do
that already talks. That already
really,
says something about the way
although
you
I
look
do
at it.
have an app that will allow me to buy. I downloaded the app last week. I have not bought yet.
Okay, so let's end the episode, and we are going to buy your first Bitcoin. Depending on which app it is, I will send you your first fractions of Bitcoin.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for doing this. It was very educative for me, and but we will have to do it again some other time, because I want to know more about the things that you are doing in Taiwan, and we didn't have so much chance to talk about it today.
Yeah, I love to have, and then I hope that you can come and visit, and I'll show you TSMC.
Yes, I will love to go visit. Thank you, Mark. Bye bye.
Thank you, Mauro. Yes, it's so good to see you and talk with you. And happy holidays.